Okay, so welcome to this week's episode, guys. I've got a really special guest, and I'm really excited to have him on the show today. He's a self-healing mentor. He's a public speaker as well, and he is the Amazon best-selling author. His achievements today have actually stemmed from a really tragic car accident, and that cost him an ability to walk. However, the work that he has put into himself as a result of that, through what he says, hope and belief, working on himself, he has managed to recover. He is walking again, which is absolutely incredible. So I want to get into that today and share that with you guys. He is also a business owner. He's a successful entrepreneur as well. He's the owner of Conscious Success, which is a coaching and healing mentorship program for people, business for people. And not only that, he has an incredible wife and a lovely young daughter as well. So Aaron Timms, how are you doing?
Thank you for your kind words. I'm doing very well.
Awesome.
Very well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me. As I said to you, it was I interviewed Aaron a year ago, and I was thinking of people who I could interview and speak to, and Aaron came up again because I know this guy in the last 12 months has put so much work in himself. He continues to do this, and his knowledge has just gone through the roof. And I wanted to have you on today so you could share that knowledge with people. But just so people can get clear and understand, what it is that you do. What is a self-healing mentor? Just describe that for me.
Yeah, actually, Tom, do you know, interestingly, I've decided to change. I've decided to change that, and I now call myself a mind body healing coach. It's something that's transpired in the last few weeks, actually. Mind body, and the reason is because mind body healing it's about connecting mind and body. And as you know, and as you understand, a coach is about extracting from people. It's not about teaching people necessarily. There'll be moments of big teaching and lessons and realizations within the coaching, but mentoring is more about teaching and coaching is more about extracting from people. And the more I understand about the work I do, actually, the more I realize it's simple, not easy. Please don't misunderstand me. Simple, but not easy. And ultimately, mind body healing is about losing the things in life we don't want: stress, anxiety, fears, judgments, doubts, all of those things. And a mind body healing coach is about coaching someone and extracting out the powerful human being that they are, extracting out that unconditional love that they have underlying behind the surface, and peeling back the layers to expose someone as a supernatural, powerful human being. And over the last 12 months, actually, the last time we spoke was probably, or went live, should I say, like this, is probably around about a year ago. And in the last 12 months, I have been working very hard. I've been working hard on my own growth and the growth of the business. You mentioned Conscious Success. That's my company that I'm building at the moment. That's the platform. And our goal with Conscious Success is to create a platform to make mind body healing simple and accessible to the world, really. It's about making it as simple and as accessible to as many people as possible. I have a really strong desire within me to get this work out to as many people as possible, because there are so many people in this world that suffer, and they do not need to. They suffer emotionally, they suffer physically. And most of the suffering is actually the misconception. What most people don't realize is most of their suffering, they think it's external. They think it's to do with their background, or they think it's to do with the economy, or they think it's to do with their environment, something that's happening with their government, or whatever it might be. At the moment we're experiencing as a world a pandemic, and they think it's something to do with the pandemic. But actually that's not true. It's not true. All suffering is a suffering of something inside. And there's a very big misbelief that many people carry about where the suffering lies. So most suffering, in fact, all suffering, comes from inside. So it's really important that this work gets out to as many people as possible to alleviate that suffering. And what I found in the last 12 months, especially as I'm doing deeper and deeper work with people, at the moment, for example, I've got a lady who I'm helping heal from Parkinson's. We've been working together for 12 weeks now. 12 weeks. and she's able to move her hands. They were locked in a position, very violently shaking a lot of the time. Her shoulders were locked and hunched forward. She's able to move her hands freely. She's able to alleviate the shaking by placing her attention and her awareness into a different place, rather than on the frustration of the illness itself. But going beyond that, she places her attention beyond her body and her environment. So she alleviates the suffering in the moment, and she's able to take back control of her hands. She's able to move her arm now. And that's a strong symptom that many people that have Parkinson's suffer with. The arm's not working properly; they get locked down. She's able to move her arm freely. There's 12 weeks in, she suffered with this for 20 years, and the pattern that has happened with her, and this is actually true of everyone I'm working with and that I have worked with to date, and although the physical symptoms are very different. I've got one lady with diabetes who type 1. She was told that she had to go on insulin injections, and that you can't heal type 1 diabetes. Well, it's early days yet. I believe you can. That's only my personal belief, but it's early days. We're working together for 5 weeks. Her blood sugar levels are half what they've been in years, and she's done nothing. She's changed not her diet, nothing, not her lifestyle. She's changed the way that she thinks, the way that she feels. She's applied this mind-body healing technique to her daily life. She's having a more beautiful experience of life, actually. And there's many more. But going back to the lady with Parkinson's and going back to my original point, what's happened here is the less suffering that she's experiencing on a daily basis. And when I say suffering, just to be clear, what I mean is self-doubt, judgment, anger and frustration towards her illness and towards life itself. Suffering as in becoming a victim of herself as well, being very hard on herself, looking in the mirror and judging herself. A lot of the emotional suffering, as she's suffered less, as we've been able to reframe the way that she looks at her life and herself, the way she looks at herself in the mirror, see beyond her body, see beyond her own identity, and look into her soul, look into who she really is. And that's a beautiful, loving person. And as she's been able to experience life and perceive life in a different way, the suffering, the daily suffering that she is experiencing is lessening. And as the suffering becomes less, the body seems to be expressing itself in a different way. The less suffering she's experiencing on a daily basis, the more free her body is becoming, literally. And that's a pattern that I'm seeing not only in this lady, she's got Parkinson's, the lady with diabetes that I mentioned, but the other people that I'm working with. There's been a lady, fairly young, very young lady actually, 29 years old, and she had a number of symptoms from MS. She had weak hands, she had poor eyesight, not poor eyesight, deteriorating eyesight, slowly deteriorating eyesight. She had tingling and numbness in her legs, which was getting stronger, an inability to concentrate for long periods of time, lots of symptoms, and the same pattern for her. She experienced anxiety a lot. She had experienced it from quite a reasonably young age, and she'd experienced suffering on a daily basis, emotional suffering, a lot of doubt, judgment, blame, guilt, anxiety, fear, ultimately fear-based and survival-based emotions. She was experiencing this suffering through the way that she perceived herself and life on a daily basis. And the link there is her body was suffering too, and she's now experiencing a different experience of life. She's got an 18-month-old son, and just by looking into his eyes, just playing with him, just picking him up, and no longer being afraid of dropping him because her hands are weak, but being able to cuddle him just with that loving presence. These small moments in life that are true greatness, that all of us, I'm guilty of this, or was guilty of this, of missing these small moments of greatness in life. She's able to experience that in a deep and meaningful, beautiful way. And as the less she suffers and the more she experiences life in this beautiful way, not because she can afford to go on extravagant holidays, or not because it's got anything to do with her material world or the external world. You know, she's experiencing this in the middle of a global pandemic, right? She's experiencing this in the middle of one of the biggest recessions we've probably had to date. She's experiencing a deep and meaningful and beautiful experience of life in the midst of this. Yet, and the byproduct of this experience of life seems to be that the body expresses itself in a different way. And
so why are people not aware of this? Why are people not aware of, by alleviating the suffering, you can start to cure the suffering and the toll that it has on the body? Why are people not aware of that?
well, the truth is, I don't know the direct answer to that because I can't speak for other people. But what I can say is my own experience of that. You know, my stepmother introduced me to this concept years, even before the car crash that I experienced. For those of you that don't know me, I had a car crash when I was 21, and my best friend of 8 years was killed, and my girlfriend of 6 years was killed. They were brother and sister, and I was left paralyzed from the waist down. I broke my back severely, and I was told that I was never going to walk again. And my stepmother introduced me to the concept that the power of the mind can heal the body. Now, I thought she was crazy. I thought that she was completely bonkers. I mean, she's been my stepmother since I was 6. And I thought she was crazy growing up when she would talk about healing and self-healing. However, I had nothing to lose. I was staring at the rest of my life as a 21-year-old, fit and healthy 21-year-old that loved football and loved life. I was staring at the rest of my life in a wheelchair. What did I have to lose? Well, nothing. So I submersed myself into this, the power of the mind can heal the body thing. And I started to visualize and do meditations and just embody it. I just embodied that feeling. And 12 weeks later, I walked out of hospital. And the point I'm getting to here is, in that moment, I didn't have a choice but to embody it. Well, I had a choice, but actually, what did I have to lose? It was like, let's go. Whereas in life, we do have a choice. Life takes us out. There's so many things. Life's very busy. And I think most people just either don't realize. And my own experience of life before the crash was that although, you know, I was introduced to this concept that suffering can be alleviated, that we can heal the body with the power of the mind, I just couldn't get it. For me, it was too far out of reach. The questions here for me were, I remember having a conversation when I was younger with my stepmom. I said, well, if you can heal yourself, if you can heal your body with the power of your mind, why doesn't everyone do it? Why do we have doctors? Why do we have this? Surely scientists would have proven this by now and the medical community would be different. That was my attitude. And the answer to that was, well, I never actually got the answer. But what I do know now is that was my frame of mind then. If it's possible, then surely we would do it by now. And I think a lot of people have that attitude. Well, if it's possible, why don't we all do it? If suffering and living this beautiful experience of life is so easy, or it's so not necessarily easy, but available to all of us, why don't we do it? Well, here's why I think we don't do it. Here's why I think people don't connect to it or even don't realize it's possible. And the word there is belief. It's like belief. If you believed that your thoughts had an impact on your health and your life, would you get up in the morning, every morning, and let a negative thought pass by your awareness consciously without stopping it and saying, hang on a minute. If people actually knew and believed how influential our thoughts and the way that we think and our mind is on our body. And it's difficult, right? For science, I mean, we're talking about science on a quantum level. We're talking about energy. We're talking about the mind. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about the mind. The brain is not the mind. I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about the mind. The brain is the hub of the central nervous system. It's gray matter, white matter. The mind is the activity of thought. The mind is neural pathways. It's an energy field. They're different things. So for scientists to prove that the mind can heal the body, that we're asking a lot of them. So I think that, I mean, now we're entering into a time where we're bridging spirituality and science, and quantum physics is starting to bridge that gap. So I do believe that the knowledge and wisdom that the ancient sages that have carried for all these thousands of years, that have said these things, and we just haven't believed them. Well, now science is starting to bridge that gap, and that's a beautiful thing. But I honestly, in answer to your question, I think people don't see it, they don't believe it. It's too far out of their range of understanding. To adopt that concept is too much. For me, it was. To adopt that concept, it was too big for me. My level of thinking at that time, before I had the crash, was too big for me. And maybe the other thing as well is the big word here, and I know you understand this, Tom, seeing your journey yourself, the courage and vulnerability you've shown, it's responsibility. Because if you believe that, one, if you truly believe it, and two, if you're willing to accept that belief and actually make it part of your life, it means taking responsibility. It means saying, hang on a minute, the situation I'm in, my life, my state of well-being, the suffering that I endure every single day, then that's actually, I'm the creator of that. And let me be clear, that is not to say blame yourself. I blame myself. I'm not talking about blame. Blame and responsibility are two very different things. However, taking responsibility means actually I have to do something about it. This is down to me. And I do think somewhere, and I've experienced this myself, somewhere there's a level of unconscious fear that seems to push people away from accepting responsibility. And I think that has a lot to do with it too.
And that's something I wanted to. I'm glad you said that about blame, because I think responsibility is so important. But people, when you say, "Hey, you need to be more responsible," they immediately take that as a sign that it's their fault, and they're to blame. And I think that's where the confusion lies for people when it comes to taking responsibility. And I think what it is whatever has happened, whatever the situation is, going, "Hey, this isn't my fault, but it is my responsibility to do something about it."
Yeah, absolutely. There's a saying that I heard about 2 years ago, and it really stuck to me. And it was this: it's people always do their best at that time. People always do their best at that time. And when I started to reflect on that, I was like, well, that's not true, because I could have done this, right? Or this person could have done that. But when I actually really deeply reflected, I was like, actually that is true, because my level of understanding at that time meant this. My level of experience, my level of awareness, self-awareness. And when I actually looked back at my own journey and my own evolution, I'm like, yeah, actually, Aaron, you did always do your best at that time. And yes, there were mistakes. There were things that were not acceptable. I've done things in my past that are not acceptable, certainly to me now, that are not good enough, that, I could have done things differently, of course. But when I honestly look back, it's like I always did my best at that time. And I believe that to be true of everyone in every moment, actually.
And I like what you're saying there, because when you say that, I think about the past relationships I've been in, and definitely with all the personal development, all the courses that we've done. And now I look back, I go, how could I behave like that? What was I doing? What was I playing at? But at that time, that was the best I knew. I was doing my best. And it's kind of frustrating now you're in this position, you're like, I could have behaved differently, but you've got to just take that lesson and you've got to move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a choice. It's like, what is the lesson? It's a question I ask my clients a lot, and it's a question I ask myself a lot as well. What is the lesson? Because, and again, actually, it comes back to what I was saying originally with suffering, right? I do something in my life, and then I realize In hindsight, looking back, it wasn't the right decision. It didn't serve my goals. It didn't serve my well-being. It didn't serve my wife or my daughter or whatever it might be. I'm like, that wasn't the right decision. But upon reflection, it's like, okay, well, what is the lesson? And because there's always a lesson. And to me, that's what life's about, right? It's not about blame. It's not about pointing fingers. It's like, actually, what is the lesson? And there's always a lesson. And if you're willing to accept and find the lesson, there's always evolution. There's always growth. There is always, in my own experience, there is always a beautiful experience beyond the lesson. It's like that new level of evolution and growth creates something beautiful in my life.
Wow, it's powerful, man. So what is the process that you take people through to alleviate the suffering? How does that actually happen? How does that actually work?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's important. So we have different, within conscious success, we're developing different programs and different levels, phases, and phase is a stage of development. So we're kind of developing a journey for people to go on and to create deep physical, emotional, and even spiritual healing at some point as well. But there's actually really, under the umbrella of it all, there's two processes ultimately that everything comes under the umbrella. Okay. And the two processes are this: it's resistance, drive, decision. Because at every level of mind, of level of life, of physical well-being, at every level there comes a certain level of resistance, because resistance is the mind opposing the conscious mind. It's our sense of identity opposing the conscious recall of the unknown, anxiety producing experiences. So, and by definition, actually, resistance is the ego opposing the conscious recall of anxiety producing experiences. Now, what that means in English is where you don't want to go into the unknown because it's scary. so every and change is the unknown. So at every level of change, when you change in level of mind or physical well-being, whatever the changes in life, there's always a sense of always a resistance. And sometimes that resistance, we can see it plain as day. Most of the time we can't. When you're in the jar, you cannot read the label, right? And so one of the really powerful things we do is help people to see what the resistance is from a loving way, so that they can work through it, so they can step into the unknowns, they can step into that change safely. So we have a process called resistance, drive, decision, and that resistance is moving past the invisible wall of fear that stops us stepping into the change and the unknown. Drive is about connecting to what really drives us, the deep driver inside, because the easy days when it comes to change, healing, evolving, the easy days are easy. But the difficult days become easy when you connect it to the right drive. Why you really want to change, what it means to you to have a different experience of life. And the decision part is I help people to experience the decision, not make a decision, because we all make decisions and we don't stick to them, right? I'm guilty of that. And I'm sure most people listening to this will say, okay, if they're being honest, they'll say, yeah, I do that. But the decision, if we experience the decision, what will life be like in 10 years, 20 years, even 5 years, actually, if we don't heal, if we don't make a change? What will life be like if we do? And I take them through an experience to experience that. And the reason that's so powerful is because it becomes ingrained, not just consciously, not just subconsciously, but into the body as an emotional experience. When you make that decision on a cellular level, that is the beginning of change itself. You are biologically, physiologically, chemically, energetically changing. That is the first step. And I believe that's one of the reasons why we're having such profound results, and we're having so many deep changes in people, because when you make that decision on a cellular level, there's no going back. It's like a one-way street. So that's the umbrella of one process. And the second process is this: it's knowing, doing, and being. And knowing is adopting a new philosophy. It's reading the book. It's seeing a a program or listening to an interview like this and being inspired, or adopting some new information where you're like, actually, you know what, maybe it's possible. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. And that's the knowing part. And I do a bit of teaching in my work and helping people to understand and know, and that's an important part. But that's not enough. It's just not enough. So then there's the doing part. And the doing is the mind-body healing techniques. I've extracted some, I actually did a video diary of when I was in hospital. My stepmother said to me, you must video this journey, because one day you'll be on stage and you'll be helping people and they'll need to see what you went through. And again, I was like, well, you just turn that camera off. You're crazy. And you know what? She was right. How she knew that, I have no idea, but she knew. And thankfully we got a video diary. So I've extracted out of some of the things I did, the visualizations, the meditations, the conscious focus that I used. And I've created some mind-body healing techniques. One of them is the embodied experience, which is a beautiful experience where we take people out of the body and we do some healing work and they transcend back. There's some meditation, some breath work, and some other things. So the doing part is those. You can implement them in your life. You know, maybe you'll get up in the morning and you'll do 30 minutes meditation, this beautiful experience, and that's part of the doing, you know, and you'll add that into your life. And this is what most people don't realize. This is where most people fall short when it comes to healing. I'm working with some of my clients have seen psychologists, therapists, healers, all sorts of different types of therapy, and they haven't healed, and they're now healing. And this is the reason why I believe that's happening, because they don't bridge the gap between doing and being. That's the key to healing for me. That's why conscious success is so successful already, and we're only just starting out, because you have to bridge the gap between knowing, doing, and being. Now, what I mean by that is being is this, okay? It's taking that, we have 24 hours in a day, right? And if you spend 1 hour or 2 hours a day doing your healing, your meditations, your visualizations, that's wonderful. It's a really strong start. However, if you're doing that for 1 hour or 2 hours, so say 2 hours a day, right? There's another 22 hours of that day. And if you're spending the other 22 hours of that day in a place of suffering, and there's levels of suffering. So many people they think they're not suffering, but they are, because not feeling joy, not feeling happiness, not feeling love, self-love, not feeling abundance, not feeling love in their relationships, those things, not feeling those things is a level of suffering. Suffering doesn't just have to be deep states of anxiety. So if you're spending the other 22 hours of the day in a place where there's a lack of love, a lack of self-worth, a lack of self-love, or there's anxiety, there's fear, whatever it may be, then what you're doing is you're in a tug of war that, to be quite honest, you're not going to win. It's going to be an ongoing battle forever. And what we do is we have our first program is a self-transcendence program. And the reason we've created the self-transcendence is we help people transcend from the person who got sick, the person who got ill, the person who has been suffering, to the new person, the healed version of them. And that's bridging the gap between doing and being. So for the other 22 hours of the day, they don't experience this suffering. They change their biology, they change their physiology, their chemistry. And emotion is energy in motion. And emotion is a chemical secreted from the brain into the body. So the environment within our body is dependent on the way that we think and the way that we feel. So we bridge the gap. So ultimately, under those two processes, what we do is we have the mind-body healing techniques that I've extracted and built based on my experience of healing myself from paralysis. And then we combine that with what I call pure coaching. And pure coaching is deep and meaningful life coaching that supports people in bridging the gap between doing and being.
That's awesome, man. There's so much there, and this is why I wanted to have you back on, because I know all this work that you've put in over the last 12 years. I know how much research, 12 years, the last 12 months, I know how much research you've been doing, and what you're starting to find is what it is that actually what it is that actually works and what it is that the process that people go through. Because once you lock down on that, it's just a case of rinse and repeat, if you like, rinse and repeat. As soon as you've got that formula. So my question is, can anybody do it?
Yes. There's a short and a long answer. The short answer is yes. The long answer, which I'm going to cut down for you now, is that yes, but it does require a few ingredients. The number one ingredient really is willingness. There are times in the journey when there's loads of motivation, there's lots of belief, there's lots of hope, and it's like, yes, this is fun, this is easy, life's changing, the experience of life is wonderful. And then there's times when the resistance, which is invisible, right? The resistance shows itself in the form of thoughts. It shows itself and thoughts come, most of our thoughts come from our conscious mind, and that's the analytical, logical, rational mind. And because our thoughts are often logical, they're rational, we take ourselves out. We don't see it coming. I've done this. I still do. That's why I have a coach. I'm sure we're all guilty of this. Maybe the Buddha is an exception, but but we're all guilty of this. and it's, anyone can do it, but it's a willingness to go through those moments when it's not so easy, when it's not so when it's tough, when the resistances come in. Resistance shows itself in the form of fear as well, and physical resistance, the body resists. So the answer is yes, anybody can do this. And it just requires a few ingredients. It requires honesty, openness, and a willingness. But yes, anyone can do this.
And then a thought came into my head. I was thinking about Les Brown, because you said, there are times when it's not easy. It's about willing to go through it when it's not easy. And Les Brown talks about that. He says it's easy for anybody to think positively, sing from the hymn tops when all your bills are paid, everything's going really well. That's easy. But it is when things aren't going well, when people are struggling, when they're down in the dumps, that's when it counts. That's when it matters. When you put the work in then, and you're forcing yourself to have positive thoughts, that's when it really matters. There's a few things that I want to talk about, and one of those is skepticism, because I know people may watch this video and think, well, you can't heal yourself from paralysis. That's impossible. There are going to be the skeptics. There are going to be the doubters. What do you say to them? What do you put out to those people who are skeptic about it?
It's a good question, actually. And there's two ways to look at that. I mean, you have every right to be skeptical. You have every right to doubt, of course. Why I said earlier, it's a good question, right? If this is so possible, why do so many people still suffer? Why do we still have pump millions and billions into research, medical research, and pharmaceutical companies and all those things? And they're good, valid points. And it's like, what I would say in answer to that question, actually, there is one thing I do believe. If we've spent hundreds of billions of pounds, dollars, euros as a community, and when I say community, I mean humanity, as each individual human being one cell of a larger organism. When I say community, I mean humanity. So as a community, we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars and on research, on medical research, on pharmaceuticals. Is a huge industry. For us to then come along and say, well, actually, I can heal you, and you don't actually need a lot of that stuff. It's like there's going to be a lot of people resisting that, their own beliefs, their own, many people will have spent lifetimes submerging themselves into this work, and then to come along and realize, or for someone like me to come along and say, well, actually, you may not need to do that, then that means they have to question their own selves, their own beliefs, their own lives. So there is going to be lots of skepticism, and it's valid. And it's what I would say to those people, though, is open your mind. Okay. And just to be clear, actually, I'm not knocking directly pharmaceutical companies and things like that. They're just a good example. They have their place. They also, many of them shouldn't have their place, but there are some great ones. But I would say to skeptical people, open your mind. You know, is it possible? We live on this massive planet, right? That is a speck in this universe. We don't even know what's out there, right? We live in this planet that orbits the sun, and there's this ball of fire up there somewhere that creates this gas. And we have all of these amazing things happen around us, right? We have all of these incredible things happen in nature, the way Mother Earth creates life in itself, all these wonderful things. Do we know how all of that works? No. We don't. We have no idea. We understand a fraction of it. Science has helped us to understand a fraction of it, right? Could you be willing to explore an unknown? Could you be willing to explore something that you cannot see in front of you? Do you use electricity every single day? Do you know how that works? Are there miracles that happen every single day? Yes. Can we explain them all? No. Would you be willing? Would you be willing to trust or even explore in something that you don't understand for the possibility that you might be able to alleviate your suffering for the rest of your life, physically, emotionally? That's what I would say to people that are skeptical. I would say you have every right to be skeptical. You have every right. But also, I would ask you from my heart, not from my head, I would ask you from my heart, be willing, please open your mind to something that you don't understand, to something, trust in something beyond your level of awareness right now, because your unwillingness not to do that could create suffering for you and potentially people around you that you love for the rest of your life. That's how serious it is. And just having a willingness to open your mind and explore something you don't understand could alleviate that suffering for the rest of your life.
And would you say a lot of people have come to you, like you said, when your stepmom was kind of encouraging you to do the mind, the body, the healing, and you were skeptical of it, but you said, you had nothing else to lose. Do you find a lot of your clients are coming to you because they have nothing else to lose?
Some, yeah, it gets to the point. It does actually seem to be quite a common pattern. I see it in quite a few the people I'm working with. They say, I've had enough of this doctor's journey. I've had enough. I've been treated like this. I've had so many different treatments. I've had so many different medications. I feel like a rat in a test laboratory where they're just trying things on me, and I've had enough. And that had enough seems to be quite a lot. It seems to be like many people do the same as what I did, really, in a way. They try other things, they explore other therapies, medications, whatever it is, and they get to the point where it's like, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. And that does seem to be quite a common pattern. And I would say to people, why wait? Why wait? It doesn't have to get that bad before you make a change. You do not have to suffer to the point where you cannot, there is no option for you to suffer in this way. So the suffering gets too much where it's like, I'm desperate, I need to do something different. Why wait? Make a change today. Why wait till your experience of life is that bad you're forced to make a change? Choose change. Choose something unknown. Choose a beautiful experience of life today. You don't need to be rich. You don't need the economy to be doing well. You don't need anything else but a conscious decision.
So correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, but I can't remember the stat. I can't remember the statistic. But I think now more than ever, more people are moving to, if you like, call them kind of that secondary way of healing against the primary, which is going to your doctors, going to your pharmacy, getting your antibiotics. But people are alternative forms of medication and healing. What do you see as the future for your industry?
Oh, it's massive. I see it as the future. It cannot not explode. It already is exploding, but now we live in a time of technology, right? Ignorance is a choice. It's a choice now. We live in a time of technology. You know, you and I are able to do this interview today. You're able to put it onto YouTube and out to other platforms, and that's literally global instantly, right? This information is now available to people globally, and it's a matter of time. I read a study. I don't know how accurate the study is, but I read that in America now, a GP or a doctor is the eighth choice for people when they get ill. The eighth choice. Yeah, now they'll go to alternative therapies, holistic healers, mind body healing coaches like myself, alternative therapies before the GPs. And, you know, there's too many. I'm not the only one doing this. You know, there's lots of people that are way more experienced than me. There's lots of people that are less experienced than me, but there are lots of people doing this work. And there are lots of people that are what I would call like waking up. And when I say waking up, I mean becoming aware and conscious of this way of living and this experience of life that's available to us. And there are so many people waking up and experiencing that now. And results speak for themselves. You know, the work that I'm doing, I'm recording all of this. You know, maybe there's some skeptics listening. I'm recording all of this. I've got evidence. I've got proof that what I'm doing is working. And that you can't keep that locked up. You can't. Not today, not in this day and age, not with social media in the way it is. You know, I'm helping people heal that have not been able to heal for 20 years. They've had medications, they've been down the doctor's route, they've tried all these other things, and within 12 weeks, we're making a significant difference to their physical health. You can't keep that locked down anymore. So it's a matter of time before not only does conscious success help a lot of people, but other businesses and other holistic practices and approaches help people in the same way I am. It's a matter of time before this industry just explodes. I'm excited, actually. I'm super excited.
That expression, waking up, I love that expression. I've heard it being used before, and I think it sums it up so well, because for Western civilization particularly, you know, it's not the case all around the world, but a lot of the world isn't free. A lot of people, you know, there are people, most of the world is working for under $1 a day. But in Western civilization, we seem to be under this delusion that we are free, we live a free life. But you know, actually, that's not the case, because a lot of what you've been talking about today, we're deeply suffering. We're not free from our. But you know, my goals in life are freedom, and what I mean by that is financial freedom, time freedom, but also emotional freedom as well. That's a big part of it. Like you talked about, to not be suffering. So where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought there. It's always a good place to be in.
While you get your train of thought back, there is something I want to say there, actually, because well, I've been one of the things I've experienced in my life. Right, I always used to have these financial goals, and it was like, I want to be a successful entrepreneur, I want to create wealth. And it started off because I wanted a luxurious life, and then as I developed and understood life more, it was more about freedom. Okay, it wasn't about material things, it was about freedom. And so I was very fixed on freedom, and then it evolved a bit further than that. It was like, well, actually, I want to help more people, and I want the freedom for myself to help more people. And that was where I was going with it. And as I've evolved and understood more, that's kind of where it was going. And then I read something in a book, whenever it was, and it was a Wayne Dyer book, The Power of Intention. And it said that people measure their self-worth based on their success in life. And I was like, that's interesting. And the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at my own life, and I was like, wow, that's interesting, because I was doing that unconsciously. And what I was doing is I started off years ago measuring my success based on financial levels. And of course, there was times when I had moments of success and moments of massive failure, like we do in life. And so my own levels of self-worth were going up and down. And when I look back, I was like, wow, that's so true. Then I realized, and I started to look at my life now. I was like, what do I deem success? So I started to ask myself that question. And for me, it was like, well, for me, success is helping someone to heal. And then I was kind of looking at that, and then I realized this what I call like a consciousness bomb smacked me in the face. And I realized, I was like, oh, wow, I've just been hit by a consciousness bomb. That's a dangerous game, Aaron, because yes, you're a phenomenal mind body healing coach. I know I am. I'm phenomenal at what I do. However, you cannot heal people. Only the individuals can heal themselves, right? And that's based on their level of willingness, their level of responsibility, and these things. And I realized that I was never going to become free because I was always placing my success, therefore my own level of self-worth, therefore my own experience of life and how I felt on a daily basis on other people. And I was like, wow. So then I started to look within and I was like, what's true success? So I defined it for myself, and this is just a personal thing. And I was like, right, for me, it's enlightenment, and I'm not enlightened. I have moments of enlightened moments when I realize things like these consciousness bombs hit me. But my goal in life is to experience freedom and enlightenment. That's my own personal goal, and that's what I'm trying to work towards daily. And I realized there is no such thing as external freedom. You just can't experience it. It's an illusion, and it's an illusion that probably most of this planet lives by, and it's an illusion that creates suffering in itself. Most people live under this illusion, chasing these external goals for freedom, that freedom that doesn't exist. The only freedom that exists is freedom of mind and freedom of emotions. That's it. There's no other freedom. There may be catalysts in the outside world that trigger moments of freedom, but actually the only freedom is freedom from yourself, freedom in the way that you think, the way that you feel. And that, what I call consciousness bomb that smacked me in the face that day, since then, my whole experience of life has changed, and it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful.
And I think I've shared this story with you before. I was listening to one of Tony Robbins' tapes, and he was talking about we have different rules for success. You know, we put different rules to it. And he was talking about one of his events. There was a guy who's a multimillionaire. He had it all, like the wife, the house, the cars. You know, he had it all. But he was deeply unhappy. And he was deeply unhappy, and it was because his rule for success was just so ludicrously unachievable. And they asked another person, who's like, what's your rule for success? Oh, I just have to get out of bed in the morning. I just have to wake up. And that's as soon as he'd done that, this day was a success. He'd won. And I think that's what you're talking about there. I think success, the freedom, success is different for everyone, but I think it really starts at home with the way you think and the rules that you put on yourself.
Yeah, I think that it's important to be careful there, because there's two types of success for me, and it's like an internal success, which I call true success, and then there's an external success. I mean, what you're saying there is maybe that this person he's given himself lower goals, or significantly lower, as it would appear, that he's able to achieve those goals on a daily basis, so he feels good about it, but I would challenge that and say, is that really true success? Because getting out of bed, all right, he might have achieved what he wants to achieve, and it may give him a level of pleasure or happiness or whatever. But true success has to be an experience of freedom in life. And just by setting yourself low goals will not help you achieve that. And I believe that if you can define true success as an inner success, then you give yourself a level playing field. Right? And it doesn't matter about what ethnicity you are, what religious background, where you from in the world, and your level of wealth that you grew up with, or whatever. You know, none of these things matter, because everyone is on a level playing field, because everyone can control the way that they think and the way that they feel. They can, even if they may not be able to do it right now, they have the ability to learn and train themselves in it. So that's like a level playing field. And then, of course, external success, you know, that's a different thing. You know, we can strive towards goals. I still have external goals, don't get me wrong. They're important, but actually I do strongly believe that defining true success and being able to work towards it and attain it on a daily basis is in itself alleviating suffering. It's something I help people with. to be honest, helping them define true success on an internal way, and then working towards it daily, step by step, at their own pace. And it's interesting because as we do this, as they attain true success, which is an inner feeling, the suffering reduces, the body expresses itself differently, and they literally physically heal.
Oh man, thank you. So I know I do every day 10, 20 minutes of meditation. I know you go deep on this. I know this is a really important part of your day. I'm going to hit you with 3 questions here. What is meditation? Why do meditation? And how do people do it?
Okay, good questions. I'm going to be direct with my answers because I would like to spend a lot of time on those questions, but I don't think we don't have that time. So I'm going to be quite direct with my answers. So the first question was, what is meditation? Was that right?
That's right.
Okay, so what meditation is, if you look up the Tibetan definition, or what it means to them, it's to become familiar with. And I believe that meditation is actually exactly that. It's to become familiar with the unconscious self. Okay, to become familiar with the unconscious self. So it's a practice that you can use to sit and be with yourself in a way that you start to you observe, not experience, but observe your thoughts, because your thoughts are like a speakerphone for your unconscious self, right? So you can start to become familiar with your unconscious self. And when you become familiar with your unconscious self, you can identify yourself as the observer, not as sucked into the reactions and the emotions and the thoughts of it. You can be the observer of your familiar self and your unconscious self. And when you're able to do that, of course, you can identify what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep of yourself. And it's like you can literally design yourself, not because someone's telling you must change or anything like that, not because your familiar self is not good enough, none of those things. It's like, I can evolve as a human and have a different experience of life. So it's really, what is meditation? It's a beautiful practice that's enjoyable, calming, relaxing, and fun. And it's an opportunity to become familiar with your unconscious self.
Awesome. And that kind of explains why to do meditation as well. So how do people do it? Because I speak to people and they go, no, I can't meditate. I have these thoughts didn't shut up and I couldn't do it. Yeah. So how do people meditate, and what do their expectations need to be?
Okay, so can I answer the second question first that you originally asked me? Because actually that first answer doesn't fully answer the second question, and I just want to be clear. It's important that people hear this. And one of the reasons why we meditate, by the way, there are many reasons. One day, this is the ultimate reason, really. One day a man walks up to the Buddha and he says, "Why do you meditate so many hours a day? Like, why? What do you gain out of it?" And the Buddha says, "I gain nothing." The man says, "Well, I don't get it. Why would you do it so many hours a day if you gain nothing?" And the Buddha says, "I lose everything I don't want. All of my thoughts, all of my fears, all of my anxieties, all of my suffering." I said, "I gain nothing. I just lose my suffering." And ultimately, that's why we meditate, right? We lose our suffering. And something I learned from Joe Dispenza, probably the world's leading in mind-body healing. He taught me this, that when the body goes into a stress response, right? So the primitive state, that fight or flight thing, when we're running away from danger, we focus unconsciously on 3 things. We focus on the body. Am I running fast enough? Am I physically able to get away from the danger? The environment. What hedge do I need to jump over? What tree do I need to dodge? Where do I need to get to? Where's the cave that can keep me safe? We scan the environment. Where's that place of safety? And time. How long does it take me to get from this position of danger to over there as safety? So unconsciously, our body focuses on the body, the environment, and time. And that's a stress response within the body. Now, the body is either in growth or repair, growth and repair, rejuvenation, or stress response. We're not in the middle. There's no middle ground. We're either in one or the other. That's why rest and sleep is so important. And when we do meditation, we have the opportunity, if we know, to focus our conscious attention beyond the body, beyond the environment. And the environment is the people in your life, jobs, your financial situation, whatever life is to you. That's your environment. No longer are we primitive beings. Life is life. That's our environment. We get the opportunity to focus beyond our body, the environment, and time. Okay. When we focus beyond the body, the environment, and time, we move into a state of growth, repair, and rejuvenation. And there's lots of reasons to meditate, but when it comes to physical healing, that's really the answer. That's why you meditate, to help you physically heal. Because when you focus beyond the body, the environment, and time, you get to go into a state of growth and rejuvenation and repair. And the beautiful thing about that is it's fun. That's why healing can be fun. We don't have, it's not treacherous and hard work all the time. You just have to sit and enjoy.
So do you think put an unnecessary level of stress and pressure on it?
Yes. And this is part of the blockage that most people suffer, is they think that healing has to be focused on healing. But actually, no. That the art to healing, there's a science and there's an art. And the art to healing is to focus your attention. Where you place your energy is where you place your, where you place your attention is where you place your energy, right? It's to focus your attention and energy on healing and growth, repair, rejuvenation. But actually, it's not directly on the healing. That's the point. It's on the beautiful experience of life. So when you have it, like, meditation can be beautiful, it can be fun, and it can be simple. So that's why we do meditation. And in answer to your third question, how? Okay, it's an interesting one, because you said there's many people that say, oh, I can't do meditation, right? I'm not capable. Or, well, that's so common, right? What happens is is we sit down and we don't really know what we're doing. This is new to us. I've experienced this too. This is new to us. So we sit down, we've got a piece of music or even a guided one, whatever. And we're like, right, I'm ready. Set my environment. Some of us burn incense. And the reason I do is because one of the things about meditation is the idea is to shut off from the five senses. Because when you shut off from the five senses, you lose your sense of self and you become whole. So that's why people shut their eyes, they burn incense. That's why they shut off in a room and go to a quiet place. They can't hear anything, or headphones are better. So people set the environment and they shut off from their five senses, close their eyes and stop, they burn incense so they can't smell the dinner or whatever. Put earphones in and, right, now's my time. Then, of course, what happens is these thoughts start coming up. Thought after thought after thought. And then we listen to the thoughts rather than observe the thought. We get sucked in, and then all of a sudden our attention's on the thought and we're thinking about work or money or the relationship we're in or whatever it might be. And then we realize, we're meditating. Hang on a minute. Right, back into the meditation. There we go again. Thoughts capture us. And then 10 minutes goes past or whatever it might be in it. And then we adopt this belief. Based on the experience we've had, we adopt this belief, and it's, I'm no good at meditation. It's not for me. I can't do meditation. I can't quiet my mind is the best one. Well, good luck with that. Quieting the mind is possible, but it's not easy. So this is what I ask people that listen to this. Please do not adopt the belief that you can't meditate. Do not adopt that belief that you're not good enough or meditating is not for you or you can't meditate, because that is not true. It's a belief you've picked up on your experience. You have to give it time. So in answer to your question, how? Well, there's lots of hows, right? But one thing I would say is set your environment, shut off from your five senses. The beginning would be start to observe. Observe the sensations in your body, right? Observe your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. Your thoughts are the activity of your mind, right? Observe the activity of your mind. Your emotions are the emotions that run through your body, and the feelings are the sensations you feel in your body as a result of the emotions. So if you feel anger, if the emotion is anger, the feeling might be a shaking in the hands. If the emotion is love, it may be a tingling in your heart, whatever it might be. So observe your thoughts, observe the emotions, and observe the feelings, and just become the observer. And when you start to become the observer, you'll find all sorts of things happen. These emotions come up. You start to feel things that you haven't felt in a while, and even that can be scary, right? We all say we want the unknown, but when the unknown comes, we're like, whoa. So give yourself a chance, is what I would say.
Yeah, I hope that helps people, and I hope that clears things up for people. So that's a good way of describing it. So thank you for sharing that. So, but before we finish up, there's a couple of questions that I like to ask at the end of these, and the first one is, who is somebody that you know that not many people necessarily do know, but you feel they really need to know?
Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton is the one for me. He's written a book called The Biology of Belief. That book for me, I think that's probably my favorite book. And the reason he said it's called The Biology of Belief is because he was a stem cell biologist, scientist, and he made a discovery. And the discovery he made was this, that the cells in our body, there was this belief that the nucleus of each cell, we're made up of 50 trillion cells. And there was a belief that the nucleus of the cell was the brain of the cell. And he discovered that that's not true. He discovered that the brain of the cell is the outer layer, okay? And the reason being is because if you remove the nucleus of a cell, it will survive for months without it. And the outer layer of a cell, every single cell in the human body, actually determines what it lets in and what it lets out, and it reads its environment. And what he discovered is this, and he's the reason why so many people are starting to be able to understand the work that I do, right? He's actually scientifically explaining a lot of the work that I do. And he's saying that if every cell in the body responds to its environment, and the environment within the body is made up of chemicals, your emotions are the chemicals secreted into the blood, and your neurology, your nervous system, which is your thoughts. Every thought is a neural pathway. So the way that you think and the way that you feel creates the environment within your body. And he's now discovered and proven scientifically that every cell in your body reacts to its environment. The way that you think and the way that you feel is the environment within your body. And that was the bit he hit that book, and his work was probably the big thing for me that was like, it linked some of the dots, the blanks that I had of how my work is actually healing people. So I would say, yeah, Bruce Lipton, and definitely check out The Biology of Belief. Phenomenal book.
The last question is, what's a question that I could have asked that you necessarily haven't been asked before, and one that you want to answer?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, so what are the stages or the phases of the complete healing journey? So what are the phases of a complete healing journey? Okay, and I'm excited to answer this actually because this is what I've unfolded from my own experience of healing and through facilitating other people through their complete healing journey. And this is my answer. Okay. The first phase is what I would call self-transcendence. And self-transcendence is Well, transcendence by definition means to go beyond your mind and body. So self-transcendence means to go beyond your own mind and your own body. So the limitations you place on your own mind by your own beliefs, um, your own your own programs and your own perceptions of life, okay, and your own resistance levels and awareness levels, consciousness. So it's, first of all, it's like self-transcendence. It's like transcend yourself so you have conscious control over your life. Because to heal, again, this is another reason why we're so successful already. And that's because we're helping people take conscious control over their life. And that's the foundation. It's like, we can't build something, a healing journey, or, you know, you wouldn't just take a house and build it on a rough ground on field, would you? You would clear the ground, you would lay the foundation. So self-transcendence is like the first phase, and a phase is a stage of development. So we would help people take conscious control over their lives, begin to relieve stress, become more emotionally free. The second stage is what I would call master your mind, heal your body. And the master your mind, heal your body is when you start to, you take that transcendence and you expand it. If you imagine the mind is like an invisible cage that sits around us and we don't know it, we don't see it. But as we master our mind, we begin to expand that cage. And as that cage expands, we begin to create more, what we spoke about, emotional freedom. And you begin to be able to master your mind in a way where you have emotional freedom and this experience of life, this deep and meaningful and beautiful experience of life, regardless of what's going on in your world and regardless of what's going on in the world. So that would be kind of the second stage, the second phase, if you like. And then I think the third phase is this, and it's spiritual evolution. And the reason I say this, and I'm thank you for the opportunity to speak openly about this today, because I'm a spiritual person and I've been spiritual for a while. And I've been afraid to speak about it publicly before because of my own perception of what spirituality is. Because I used to see a lot of people growing up that were spiritual. And to be honest, they were they weren't people that I really... They used to bicker a lot and they had their own opinions and they were very opinionated. And then there was a lot of, they would talk about past lives and they would talk about spirits beyond this realm and all of this stuff. So I was like, that was my image that I'd painted in my head of what spirituality is. But actually, I recently discovered this, that true spirituality is not all of those things. Spirituality the definition is to blend your ego with the divine. Okay. Now, when I sort of started to learn what that really meant, I was like, well, what's your ego? Well, your ego is your sense of self. It's your identity that you create. It's your name, your personality, right? But that's not who you really are. What I'm learning is that you are not your body. Your body is a vehicle that you use to drive around this lifetime. You're not your mind. Your mind is the activity of thought. And so your ego is your sense of self, right? It's who you think you are, who you've learned to become through your experiences of life. Now, what the divine is the divine is this space, this energy that's all around us that quantum physics is now proving, right? It's this, some people call it the quantum field, some people call it the universal mind, some people call it God for the religious people listening. There's lots of definitions, but the divine is the energy all around us. And what this means is when you blend, you lose your sense of self, you lose that selfish part of you, you lose your identity, and you become whole. And that level of wholeness is an amazing experience of life. I've felt it a few times. I don't live in it yet, but I dip in and out most days. And that's beautiful, because when you take that kind of what I call spiritual evolution, you get to transcend yourself, like to way beyond what you ever thought was possible. So when you go through self-transcendence, take control of your life, then you master your mind and heal your body. You're already a different person. And then you go on this even deeper evolution where you become whole. And it's like, wow. And you don't need to go into past lives and do all that sort of stuff. That's a choice, but that's not for you. But it's actually just about an experience of life. And when you take those 3 steps, then that for me is like the ultimate healing journey.
Awesome, man. And that's why I love asking that love asking that question. I got that question from a guy called David T.S. Wood, and I thought it was a great question because it brings out the magic. It gives you the opportunity to share something that necessarily you don't get to speak about. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Where do people find you? How do they access you? How do they get, if they want to get to know you more, where do they go?
I have a website. It's www.aaron, which is AARON, Timms, TIMMS, official.com. You can go to the website. You can email us directly. If you want to explore the coaching programs and the healing mentorship, then there's an application form. So you can do it via that. Our email address, if you want to email directly, is info@aarontimmsofficial.com, or you can find us on Facebook. I have a Facebook page called Conscious Success. My personal Facebook page is pretty full, so you can try and find it, and I still have a bit of space, but it's getting more full, and that's just Aaron Timms. So I'll invite people to find me there too if they want to. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, man. Well, look, there's so much more you're sharing. There's so much more knowledge and research that you put in, as I said at the beginning, for the good, even in the next 12 months to have you back, you again, because I know you're taking off flying. So yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to share something that I believe in so deeply. Thank you.
Awesome. Cheers, Aaron. Speak to you soon, mate.
See ya.